Imagine a man whose IQ ranked among the gifted, a friendly giant with a photographic memory. He charmed every single person he met, including the police that were investigating his crimes. But behind that pleasant demeanor hid one of the most cold-blooded serial killers in American history. Today, tonight, this evening, this morning, we're going to unravel the chilling story of Edmund Kemper, a man who not only killed, but actually toyed with the idea of turning his murders into an art form. Buckle up, because this is an episode that's going to leave you questioning how well you really know the people around you. What do you think, Meg? Is that pretty good? That's what they call a hook in the business. I think I hooked him.
I think so, too.
Think so? I should take up bass fishing. So obviously the voice you're hearing is me. It's Matt. It's Beard Laws. And joining me as always is the beautiful Dun Queen, Meg. What's
Hi.
up? Hi.
Hi.
What? What's good? What's up? Anything good?
Just been busy.
You aren't kidding. But they say you'll miss it one day. You gonna miss all the busy craziness?
Oh, well.
Yeah, me too. But I gave you a choice of this one and potentially an episode about a pizza delivery person that had a pretty rough day. And you went with this one. Why'd you go with this one?
Because we recently watched a show, and this was a character in the show, and I was intrigued, I guess.
Oh, the show that you got me hooked on that only had 2 seasons?
Yeah, sorry about that.
I got a 3-season rule, Meg.
I'm sorry.
It was a pretty good show. The show that we're talking about is Mindhunter, and it was a pretty cool thing with the FBI, going around talking to serial killers and people like Edmund Kemper, who was on the show multiple times. Not him himself, but somebody who played him. It was pretty good. I was into it. But I think what happened with that show is it was put out right before the old COVID, and I have to imagine it didn't do as good as they thought it would. So they decided to cancel her, and probably having to record a TV show and series and stuff like that during the pandemic was not something that the directors wanted to do.
Yeah.
That's just a guess. But I say we do this thing. Should we do the intro, or should we do a little bit of an intro, then the intro?
Do a little bit of an intro, then the intro.
Ooh, we're gonna
mix it up.
Let's mix it up a little bit. All right. So obviously this is the Your Tone podcast. If you're new here,
Get jiggy with it.
We get jiggy with it, and we dive into chilling, sometimes eerie, and stories that make you want to leave the lights on at night. And, well, this one definitely probably will, because we're going to do a deep dive into the life of Edmund Emil Kemper III, known as the co-ed killer. Kemper's crime shocked the nation in the 70s. His ability to evade suspicion, his unsettling interviews, and the calculated nature of his murders make him one of the most infamous figures in American crime history. But this isn't just what about he did. What? I said that wrong. This isn't what he did. This is about who he was, what made him tick in the strange, almost unbelievable moments that defined his life. Intro 30?
Yes.
Okay. To truly understand old Ed Kemper, we need to go back to where it all began. See if you can find a little bit of a pattern here, huh? Born December 18th, the week before Christmas, 1948, in Burbank, California, Kemper's childhood was far from ideal. Imagine that, huh? He was the middle child of 3 children and the only son born to Clarnell Kemper, a native of Montana, and Edmund Kemper Jr., who was a World War II veteran. His parents divorced when he was 9, leaving him in the care of his mother, Clarnell Strandberg. Clarnell was domineering, emotionally abusive, and would regularly battle old young Ed, calling him a weirdo and suggesting no woman would ever love him. Her ex-husband later said that suicide missions in wartime and the atomic bomb testings were nothing compared to having to live with her, and that she affected him more than 396 days and the nights of fighting on the front did. That should say a lot, right? I mean, it's another pattern. Kid, tough life, mother issues. There's a pattern here, right? So her treatment obviously left deep psychological scars. She forced him to live in the basement because she feared he might harm his sisters. I mean, just imagine being a child, sleeping in a cold basement, isolated and treated like a monster. And the isolation sowed the seeds for the person Kemper would become. Terrible, isn't it?
It is.
But here's something you may not know. At just 10 years old, Kemper began exhibiting troubling behaviors. He would decapitate his sister's dolls and even created, what is that? Macabre? I should probably know that. Games that involved mock executions. His fascination with death was evident, even at just a young age. You have to imagine, I mean, at this time, when are we in the 48? He was born, so he's 10 years old, so we're late 50s, early 60s. Times are a lot different. It's not like you could, just reach out to some of these services like BetterHelp or any of them and just get some online help. You weren't just bringing them to a psychiatrist. Times were different. Much different. As a teenager, Kemper's behavior only grew darker. He's now 13. He killed his family's cat, a pet he felt his mother favored, and then buried the remains in the backyard. He later killed another cat and kept its dismembered head in his room. These early acts of animal cruelty are often seen as a sign of a budding psychopath. Oh, man. What's that? I mean, he's isolated in his basement. That's just my friend. My cat head.
Yeah.
What do you think the cat's name was?
I don't know.
Got no guesses for a cat's name in the 60s.
Tom.
Tom. Come on. All right. Adding to his disturbing...
What would you guess?
No, we're already moved past it.
No.
Nope.
Oh, that's not fair.
Life's not fair. How am I going to... I can't even name anything because you went with Tom. Everything that I say is going to be so much better. I don't want to show you up. I'm a gentleman.
I like Tom.
Tom and Jerry? Adding to old Kemp's disturbing upbringing was his unusual fascination with stories about executions and dismemberment. He would vividly imagine killing people he felt slighted against, and that included his mom. This internalization of anger and resentment would eventually fuel his later crimes. I'd say let's fast forward a long ways to the first murders, but we don't have to go that far. We have to go 2 years. He's 15, and his impulses take a deadly turn. It's 1964. He murdered his grandparents. Not out of rage, but as an experiment. He later explained that he wanted to see what it was like to kill. After the murders, Kemper calmly called his mother and confessed. 15 years old. Kills grandma and grandpa just to know what it feels like. That's, I don't know, unreal. Went from Tom to, what's a common name in the 60s?
Betsy.
Tom and then old Betsy and Pa.
I don't know if that's really one.
Yeah, I could see that being a 60s name, maybe. Well, I guess at that point it would be, 1900s name, right? Grandpa? Grandma? When they were born. All right, he was sent at 15 to Addiscardo. Didn't say that right. State hospital facility for the criminal insane. And here is where it gets interesting. While he's there, Kemper underwent extensive psychiatric evaluations. His IQ was tested and revealed a score of what, Meg?
145.
That is in the genius category. He became a model patient, learning to manipulate the system and gaining access to psychiatric files. The knowledge would later help him evade detection during his killing spree. Another little known fact that while he was there, he actually befriended his doctors and even helped administer tests to other inmates. He later used these insights to charm his way out of suspicion, proving just how calculating he could actually be. And he actually learned how to appear non-threatening by mimicking behaviors and language patterns of people considered, normal. This ability obviously made him be able to mask his true self, played a critical role in how he gained the trust of his future victims. Yeah, super scary. Man. And there's so many people that are in the genius category that use their smartness for dumb things, right? So let's keep it going. It's 1969. He's released. he was deemed rehabilitated and returned to live with old Ma, a decision that would prove to be catastrophic. Between 72 and 73, Kemper embarked on a horrifying killing spree, targeting young female hitchhikers. He'd pick them up, drive them to an isolated area, and murder them. But his methods, they didn't stop there. He'd actually keep their bodies around for hours, sometimes days, and was performing unspeakable acts of some pretty disturbing things, kind of like what he did to a cat, but a lot worse than that. He would dismember and other gross adult things that we could talk about, but we didn't do the viewer and listener discretion advised. To be honest, I just don't like that word, so I'm going to skip right past it. But hey, while we're talking about it, viewer and listener discretion is advised. Does that cover us, I think? Right?
Sure.
Yeah, we're good. What's chilling is how he easily blended into society because he was a little bit tall. Wouldn't you say, Meg? How tall was he?
6'7".
Yeah, and he weighed over 250 pounds. That's not really a man that could just blend into society, you wouldn't think, right?
I would think not.
Unless, maybe you were hanging around a football team or a basketball team. They're usually pretty tall. Kemper was physically imposing, yet he was also soft-spoken and polite. He frequented a bar, popular with law enforcement officers, and even became friends with some detectives that were working on the cases of his. How ridiculous is that right there? In Mindhunter, obviously, they paint a pretty good picture of him. You know what I mean? I don't know if you've ever seen actual real footage of old Ed Kemper, but they found an actor. They did a pretty good job, and he was a monster of a man. Pun intended. All right, so while we're doing this, I'm going to pull up a real picture because you've seen Mindhunter, and they did a really good job, right?
They did.
Holy cow. So there we go. And while I did do that, just for a little bit of an update, thankfully the parole was denied for the Santa Cruz County serial killer Edmund Kemper, who was 75 as of the summer of 2024. Actually, he must have just turned 76 on December 18th. He was denied parole again, and he has spent the last 51 years in jail for the crimes that we are about to continually tell you.
That's good.
Yes. He, let's see here. He attended police parties, and he actually joked about the co-ed killer with officers who had no idea that they were actually talking to the killer. That blows my mind. I mean, it's the 70s, and how many times we've done so many stories from that area where stories that just happen, it doesn't even shock you or surprise you anymore, I feel like, at this point, right? But Kemper's modus operandi also involved creating kill kits, which he stored in his car. It was complete with weapons, tools, and other items needed to not only lure, but to kill his victims. Let's fast forward just a little bit to 73, April of 73. Kemper's reign of terror culminated in the murder of his own mother. I feel like that was only a matter of time, right?
Yeah.
See, in my brain, I would have thought he potentially would have went grandparents, mom. But I guess if he would have just did the ma, they would have found him. He would have been the likely suspect, probably in jail. So maybe him killing the ma was like, all right, I give up. Let's come find me, cops.
Maybe.
There was a chilling confession that he described actually bludgeoning his ma with a claw hammer before taking off her head. He claimed that killing her was the ultimate goal all along. There we go. It was a way to silence the voice that had haunted him his entire life. Afterward, he murdered his mother's friend in an effort to kind of create a cover story, but obviously it didn't work, and thankfully it didn't work. He was overwhelmed with guilt, which is interesting. I didn't think people that did what he did felt guilt, but there was some guilt, and he drove to Pueblo, Colorado, and called police to confess. The details of Claire Nell's murder are particularly disturbing. Kemper used her severed head as a dartboard, and later said he screamed at it for hours just to kind of get out that pent-up rage. Yikes. A dartboard. I went 2-0 in darts last night, just no big deal. It was at a dartboard, not a decapitated head. And there were plastic tips, not steel tip. Yikes. All right. During his confession, Kemper noted that killing his mother actually brought him a sense of relief, as though he kind of achieved his life's purpose. And this insight has been the subject of psychological analysis for decades, kind of just like in Mindhunter, and the real story of all that. At his trial, Kemper's intelligence and eerie calmness were on full display. He waived his right to appeal and requested the death penalty, but California's temporary movement and everything they had going on capital punishment actually saved him. And today, he remains incarcerated, kind of like we already told you, where he's known for his cooperative demeanor. But Kemper's legacy extends beyond his crimes. His interviews have been studied extensively by criminologists and psychologists, offering chilling insights in the mind of a serial killer. He even recorded an audiobook for the blind, lending his deep, articulate voice to titles like Flowers in the Attic. You going to listen to that book? You're an audiobooker.
I've already read that book.
Flowers in the Attic? No, but are you going to listen to his audiobook?
Probably not.
Yeah, me neither. Ed Kemper's story is a grim reminder of the monsters that can hide in plain sight. His ability to manipulate those around him, his calculated approach to murder, and his unsettling charisma make him one of the most fascinating and horrifying figures in true crime history. This episode leaves you with chills or questions, and you're actually still listening, feel free to leave us a review, some stars, some ratings. We'd really appreciate it. If anybody wants to donate $50,000, might go come on camera next episode. All kidding aside, we can't thank you enough for hanging around, sticking around, listening to the Your Town podcast. We're approaching 100 episodes. We're almost there, Meg. Isn't that crazy?
It is.
Man.
And to think I was just a substitute.
Hey. No. Sometimes substitutes, they become full teachers, man. I've seen it happen. And sometimes you're just happy with being a substitute teacher. And that's okay too. Right? But you're in the big leagues now. Sometimes all these baseball players spend years, almost their whole career in the minors before they get the call. You got the call. You know what's even crazier? We get to celebrate episode 100, but then we get to celebrate episode 104 for 2 years. We should figure out what was your first episode and then celebrate that as well. We're just going to celebrate good times. Come on. Okay. Shout out to our sources, Wikipedia. Meg gave me the look like, all right, let's wrap this up. So she's going to hit us with a quote, and we're going to say goodbye.
Wyoming is good, but Montana is like heaven on earth. Henry Winkler, The Fonz.
Yeah, it's a new state to cover. There was a couple, obviously, different states where he was born, where he's arrested, where he's kept. So we kind of hit Wyoming, we hit Montana, and we hit a couple of different things. We're really trying to put pins all over that map. Mm-hmm. All right, I promise you, quote and goodbye. So that's all we got. We'll see you next week for another one. I feel like we might do the pizza one. Okay. Because I got a pizza cutter for Christmas, and it's Ninja Turtles, and it rules. And so do you for listening. So before we change your mind and you don't come back next week because maybe you don't like pizza, I'm going to say goodbye. Why don't you tell them goodbye first, and then because you ladies first, and then I'll do it.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.